and have the opportunity to tell our story. I'm joined today by many other wonderful mothers who share many of the frustrations that I will outline here shortly. I'd like to just mention that we're here today at the Capitol specifically because this is where Governor Whitmer gave her State of the State address yesterday. So as Gus introduced me, my name is Monica Yatooma. I'm a very proud mother of three very wonderful children. Three wonderful children whose lives were literally turned upside down in March of 2020, just like many of you. Funny thing is, my kids and I, we all remember it like it was yesterday. We were told that we would have 2 weeks off of school to flatten the curve. Well, my kids never went back to in-person learning that year, and neither did any of yours. We were fortunate enough to be at a school that was able to put a virtual program together that kept the kids learning, but it was no comparison to the face-to-face education they were accustomed to getting. My kids finally went back in late 2020 to a year that was anything but normal. And I know many of you didn't even go back until early 2021. But even when we went back, we shut down schools several times for at least a week at a time, and my children's learning environment was in constant disruption due to shutdowns and quarantines. I can tell you firsthand that the damage done to our children is irreversible. I now have a 10-year-old child who suffers from anxiety that was diagnosed at just 9 years old, and prior to the shutdowns, she was a perfectly happy and healthy child. My then 5-year-old had a diagnosed speech delay that was extremely worsened because of the shutdowns. 2 years later, and we're still trying to correct a delay that should have been mended last year. This to me is unacceptable. It's unacceptable for my children just as much as it is for all of yours. Like all of you, I love my children. They are my world. I want the very best for them, always. I believe that every single child in our state should have equal opportunity and equal access to a quality education. But the sad reality is, under Governor Whitmer, they are not getting this quality education. We are set to go into yet another year of learning loss because we still have schools that are still closed and we still have students learning remotely. 2 years into the pandemic and after 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Just look at Detroit Public Schools, Flint Public Schools, Pontiac Public Schools, and many more. These are areas where students were already suffering because of lack of resources and unfavorable home environments, and many were behind academically pre-COVID. So just imagine how behind they are now. Who's standing up for these students? I can tell you it's not Governor Whitmer, because she's well aware of these school closing and she hasn't lifted a finger to help get these students the face-to-face education and learning that they need, crave, and deserve. And all of this for what? Michigan data shows that the pediatric COVID death count in all of 2021 is less than 50. But our youth suicide rate in 2021 is through the roof. In Oakland County alone, our youth experienced 21 suicide deaths, and that's just one county, just one. Student mental health distress is at an all-time high. Depression and anxiety symptoms doubled during the pandemic. The CDC themselves have stated that school closures were associated with negative mental health impacts for both parents and students. There have been considerable impacts across emotional, behavioral, and restlessness and inattention problems. Significant rises in screen time and social media use have led to reductions in physical activity, which in turn has led to increased obesity in our children. The Journal of the American Medical Association of Pediatrics agrees with everything I've just stated, and I quote, "The toll of school closures and social isolation on children's mental health cannot be overstated and will require both immediate and long-term investigation and action to fully assess and address the impact," end quote. The learning loss has been devastating to students all across Michigan. Most recent data is showing that students are scoring 20 percentage points lower in IQ than pre-COVID scores. 20 percentage points. And Governor Whitmer seems to think that remote learning at a time like this is the right answer, and I'm here to tell you that it's not. Our Michigan students deserve better. We demand better. We heard a lot of talk from the governor yesterday, but we didn't hear any action whatsoever. Gretchen Whitmer told us the goal was to open our schools and that we would be back to normal with in-person learning. Yet another broken promise from Governor Whitmer, because that goal has not been met. Talk is cheap, Governor Whitmer. We need action. Any children currently learning remotely need to immediately be let back into their classrooms for face-to-face instruction. Our kids have suffered greatly under your failed policies, Governor Whitmer, and I'm confident that I can speak for many of us when I say that we have had enough. We demand the best for our children, and we recognize that the best is not remote learning or forced masking. So we ask you today, Governor Whitmer, are you going to take action and make all Michigan students make sure all Michigan students return to in-person learning? Are you going to take action and stop using your health directors to impose illegitimate mask mandates on students that studies clearly show are further harming their mental health and well-being? Like I said, talk is cheap, Governor Whitmer. It's time for you to show us that you have the capability and the integrity to take action, Governor. Thank you for your